The champagne flutes clinked like tiny bells around me, each sound sharp and calculated. I stood in the corner of the university's marble-lined reception hall, watching my stepfamily move through the crowd like they owned the place. In a way, they did. The Whitmore name was etched into half the buildings on campus. My stepfather, Jonathan Whitmore, adjusted his navy tie and shook hands with the dean. His wife, Patricia, my stepmother, glided between clusters of professors and donors in her cream silk dress, her smile practiced and cold. She had insisted on hosting this graduation party for me, though I knew it wasn't about celebration. It was about appearances. Elena. Patricia's voice cut through my thoughts. She appeared beside me with that familiar look, the one that said I was being examined, evaluated, found lacking. Shouldn't you be mingling? These people are here for you, after all. I nodded, knowing that wasn't true. They were here for the Whitmore name, for the photo opportunities. I was just the excuse. Of course, I said, straightening my black graduation dress. It was simple, elegant, nothing like the designer gown Patricia had tried to push on me. Though I do hope you understand that tonight is about gratitude, Patricia continued, her voice dropping to that patronizing tone. About recognizing how fortunate you've been to have this opportunity. The words stung, as they were meant to. Fortunate. As if my 4 years of straight A's, my law review position, my internship at the district attorney's office meant nothing compared to their checkbook. I understand, I said quietly. Good. Now go talk to Judge Morrison. He's been asking about you. I walked toward the bar where Judge Morrison waited, a distinguished man in his 70s who had been friends with Jonathan for decades. We exchanged pleasantries about my academic achievements and future career plans. Another gentle nudge toward gratitude, toward the corporate law path they had planned for me. I excused myself and moved toward the windows, needing air, needing space. That's when I saw her. She stood near the entrance, speaking quietly to the hostess. Even from across the room, something about her presence commanded attention. She was tall, poised, wearing a midnight blue suit that looked tailored. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, and when she turned slightly, I caught a glimpse of her profile, strong jawline, intelligent eyes. But it wasn't her appearance that made my breath catch. It was something familiar that I couldn't name, like looking into a mirror that showed not what you were, but what you could become. As she moved through the crowd, conversations seemed to pause. People turned to look, some with recognition. Whoever she was, she didn't belong to the usual circle of Whitmore associates. Patricia noticed too. I saw her intercept the woman's path, her smile tight and professional. I don't believe we've met, Patricia said, extending a manicured hand. I'm Patricia Whitmore. This is my stepdaughter's graduation party. The woman shook her hand briefly, her expression unreadable. Justice Victoria Castellanos. I'm here to see Elena. Justice. As in Supreme Court Justice Castellanos. I felt the blood drain from my face. I knew that name, had studied her opinions in constitutional law class. But she was here to see me? Patricia's smile flickered. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Do you know Elena from the university? No, Justice Castellanos said simply. I know her from before that. The conversation around us had gone quiet. People were staring now, phones discreetly emerging. A Supreme Court justice at a law school graduation party was news. Jonathan appeared at Patricia's side. Justice Castellanos, he said with practiced charm. What an unexpected honor. I'm Jonathan Whitmore. She shook his hand politely, but didn't return his smile. Mr. Whitmore, I'd like to speak with Elena, if that's possible. Of course. Elena, come here, dear. I walked toward them on unsteady legs. Why was she here?
How did she know me?
Elena, Justice Castellanos said when I reached them. Her voice was warm, warmer than I'd expected. Congratulations on your graduation. I heard you finished first in your class. Thank you. I managed. But I don't understand. How do you know you? She smiled for the first time since arriving. I think we should talk privately. Patricia stepped forward. I'm sure whatever you need to discuss can be said here. We're all family. Justice Castellanos turned to her, and I saw a flash of something harder in her expression. Actually, it can't. There's a smaller conference room down the hall, I said quietly. We could talk there. As we walked away, I heard Patricia whisper urgently to Jonathan, but I couldn't make out the words. The conference room was empty, lined with portraits of distinguished alumni. Justice Castellanos closed the door behind us and turned to face me. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. You look like her, she said finally. Like who? She reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph, edges soft with handling, and held it out to me. The woman in the photo was young, maybe 20, with dark hair and eyes that looked exactly like mine. She was laughing, her arms around a slightly older woman who could only be Justice Castellanos, though decades younger. Her name was Sofia Rodriguez, Justice Castellanos said softly. She was my partner. Your mother. The photograph slipped from my fingers. My mother's dead. She died when I was 3. My father. Your father was Miguel Rodriguez, a good man who was killed in a car accident when you were 6 months old. Her voice was gentle but firm. Sofia died 2 years later from cancer. Before she died, she asked me to watch over you, but I was young, I was afraid, and I let the state place you instead of fighting for custody. I sank into one of the conference chairs. That's impossible. Jonathan adopted me when I was 5. My mother was a drug addict who abandoned me. That's what they told you. She picked up the photograph from the floor and sat across from me. Sofia was a social worker. She spent her life helping children. She never used drugs, never abandoned anyone. She fought her cancer for 2 years because she couldn't bear to leave you alone. The room felt like it was spinning. Everything I'd been told about my early life was a lie. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've been a coward for too long. She leaned forward. I've watched you from a distance for years. I saw the speech you gave at the Student Awards ceremony last month. You sounded exactly like Sofia. And I realized that keeping my distance wasn't protecting you. It was protecting me. I remembered that speech. I'd been passionate about the need for legal advocates who understood what it meant to grow up without power. Patricia had been mortified, suggesting I'd been too emotional. If Sofia was your partner. We weren't out, Justice Castellanos said simply. It was 1987. I was a law clerk, just starting my career. We kept it private. We had plans to change that after she beat the cancer. The weight of her words settled over me. My mother hadn't been a drug addict. She'd been a social worker, a woman who fought for justice, a woman who loved another woman when that love had to be hidden. Do you have more pictures? She pulled out her phone and showed me dozens of photos. Sofia at law school graduation, Sofia holding a baby who must have been me, Sofia in a hospital bed, pale but smiling, with me asleep in her arms. She made me promise to tell you about her someday, Justice Castellanos said. To tell you that you came from love, not abandonment. The door burst open. Patricia stood in the doorway, Jonathan behind her, their faces tight with anger. Elena, Patricia said sharply. You've been gone for 20 minutes. Our guests are asking questions. I didn't let go of Justice Castellanos' hand. I need more time. Time for what? Jonathan asked. Elena is our daughter. We've raised her, supported her, given her every opportunity. You've given her a life, Justice Castellanos said, standing. Her judicial authority filled the room. But you haven't given her the truth. Patricia's laugh was brittle. The truth? Elena was a neglected child from a broken home who we rescued. Is documented in court records that were sealed when you adopted her, Justice Castellanos said calmly. Records that show Sofia Rodriguez was a loving mother who named me as Elena's guardian, a decision that was overruled when I failed to contest the adoption. The silence was deafening. I could see Jonathan calculating the implications. Elena deserves to know where she came from, Justice Castellanos continued. She deserves to know that her sense of justice isn't an anomaly. It's her inheritance. I stood up. I want to know more. Patricia's face went white. Elena, think about what you're saying. Think about everything we've given you. I'm thinking about everything you didn't tell me, I said quietly. About the lies you let me believe about my mother. We protected you, Jonathan said authoritatively. We gave you a stable home, the best education. That came with conditions, I finished. That came with the expectation that I'd be grateful enough to follow the path you chose instead of the one I wanted. Justice Castellanos moved beside me. Elena, you don't have to decide anything tonight. But if you want to learn more about Sophia, I have stories to tell. Patricia's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. You show up with some pictures and think you can waltz back into her life? Where were you for school plays and soccer games? I was being a coward, Justice Castellanos said simply. But I'm here now. I looked between the two women claiming pieces of my life. I want to see the court records. Jonathan stepped forward. Elena, those records are sealed for good reason. Making this public could affect your career. My future that you've already planned out for me? I asked. Working at your firm, living the life you've designed? The life we've provided, Patricia said, her voice rising. The life that made me feel like I didn't deserve any of it, I said, surprised by my honesty. Like I was always one mistake away from being sent back. The admission hung in the air. I saw Patricia flinch, saw Jonathan's jaw tighten. They knew it was true. I want to leave, I said finally. What do you mean? Patricia asked, pale. I mean I want to leave this party. I want to go somewhere quiet and hear about my mother. You know who you are, Jonathan said desperately. You're Elena Whitmore. You're our daughter. I'm Elena Rodriguez, I said, surprised by how right that sounded. And I want to learn about the family I came from. Voices from the hallway interrupted us. Guests looking for the guest of honor. Think about what you're throwing away, Patricia said. I'm not throwing anything away, I said. I'm trying to find out what was taken from me. Justice Castellanos squeezed my hand. Are you sure? I nodded. Then let's go. As we walked toward the door, Patricia called after us. If you leave now, there's no coming back from that. I paused. Good. I don't want to come back to this. We walked out past confused guests, past professors and donors who had come to see the Whitmore success story. I heard whispers following us, saw phones capturing photos of the Supreme Court Justice and the ungrateful stepdaughter walking away. Outside, Justice Castellanos had a car waiting. Where are we going? I asked. My house, she said. I have something to show you. The drive took 20 minutes until we stopped in front of a colonial-style home with a garden and flower boxes. This was Sophia's house, she said as we walked up the steps. I bought it from her estate after she died. I couldn't bear to let strangers live here. Inside, the walls were lined with bookshelves and photographs. The mantelpiece was covered with pictures of my mother, some alone, some with Justice Castellanos, several with a baby who had my eyes. She decorated this room, Justice Castellanos said. She had such good taste. I picked up a frame showing Sophia in what looked like a courtroom, speaking passionately to a judge. Was she a lawyer too? No, she was testifying for a teenage mother whose child had been taken away. Sophia spent months helping that family navigate the system. She won that case. For the next 2 hours, she told me stories. About Sophia's determination to go to college and social work school, about their secret but deep relationship, about her work helping children who needed someone to believe in them. From a closet, she pulled boxes labeled in careful handwriting, Sophia's belongings she'd kept for over 20 years. In a box labeled Elena were things I had no memory of but somehow recognized: a handmade baby blanket, a stuffed elephant, children's books in English and Spanish. At the bottom was a sealed envelope with my name in Sophia's handwriting. She wrote this in the hospital, Justice Castellanos said softly. She made me promise to give it to you when you were old enough. Inside was a letter, 3 pages long. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay to tell you these things myself, and I'm so sorry. I wanted to be there for your first day of school, your graduation, your wedding. But if I couldn't be there, I'm grateful Victoria will be. She's the strongest, kindest, most brilliant woman I've ever known, and she loves you already. You were wanted, Elena. You were planned and hoped for and celebrated from the moment I knew you existed. Your father, Miguel, Cried when I told him I was pregnant. Happy tears. He would have been such a good papa. You come from love. Even if the people raising you now love you, you came from a love that was fierce and protective and unafraid. Miguel, and I dreamed about the woman you'd become, strong and smart and compassionate, someone who would fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Whatever path your life takes, know that your first choice, the choice to exist, to be born, was celebrated. You are a gift to us, Elena, not a burden. You are joy, not obligation. Be brave, Mija. Be kind. Be yourself. All my love, Mama. I was sobbing by the end. Justice Castellanos wrapped her arms around me and let me cry the way I imagined Sophia might have done. She loved you so much, she whispered. So much that she made sure you'd be safe even when she couldn't protect you herself. We looked through photo albums until the sun went down. My phone had been buzzing all evening, calls from Patricia and Jonathan, from friends wondering where I'd gone. I'd ignored them all. What will you tell them? Justice Castellanos asked as she drove me back to my apartment. The truth, I said. For the first time in my life, I'm going to tell them the truth. The text I sent was simple. I'm safe. I'm learning about my real family. I need time to process. I'll call tomorrow. I want you to know, Justice Castellanos said as we pulled up to my building, I'm not trying to replace the family that raised you. I just want you to know the family you came from. You were part of my life too, I said. You loved my mother. That makes you family. She smiled, the expression transforming her face. I'd like that very much. A month later, I graduated from law school. The ceremony was small, just Justice Castellanos, Patricia, Jonathan, and a few close friends. No party, just dinner where we could actually talk. Patricia gave me a gift that night, a small velvet box containing a necklace I'd never seen. This belonged to your mother, she said quietly. Your birth mother. We found it in your belongings when you came to us, but we put it away. We thought it would be confusing. The necklace was simple but beautiful, a small silver pendant in the shape of scales of justice, worn smooth by years. On the back was an inscription, Para Elena, con amor eterno, Mama, why Papa. She was wearing it in the hospital, Justice Castellanos said, recognizing it. She never took it off. I fastened it around my neck, feeling it settle against my collarbone like it had always belonged there. Thank you for keeping it safe. That night, walking home, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Completeness. Not happiness exactly, but wholeness. Like puzzle pieces scattered for years had finally clicked into place. I moved into Sophia's house 2 weeks later. It felt different with my belongings, not like visiting someone else's life, but like finally living my own. She would love this, Justice Castellanos said as we arranged my law books on Sophia's shelves. She always talked about you coming home someday. This feels like home, I admitted. For the first time in my life, I feel like I belong. Job offers came in after graduation, corporate firms, government positions, prestigious clerkships. All the paths that would have made Jonathan proud. But every time I looked at Sophia's picture, at the photo of her testifying for that teenage mother, I knew what I wanted to do. I opened my own practice in Sophia's neighborhood, focusing on family law and children's rights. The office was small, squeezed between a laundromat and a bodega, nothing like Whitmore and Associates marble and mahogany. But it was mine. My first client was a 16-year-old girl named Carmen whose baby had been taken because she was homeless. She reminded me of the stories about Sophia's work. Young, scared, dismissed by a system that saw her age before her love for her child. We won that case. It took 3 months and countless court appearances, but we won. The day Carmen got her daughter back, she hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing me. That night, I sat in Sophia's living room reading her old case files, learning about the families she'd helped, the children she'd saved. I understood now why Justice Castellanos said I'd inherited my sense of justice. 6 months later, I stood before a packed courtroom arguing my biggest case yet, a class action suit challenging the foster care system's treatment of teenage mothers. Justice Castellanos sat in the gallery, watching as I made arguments that sounded like they could have come from Sophia's mouth 25 years earlier. When the judge ruled in our favor, I felt Sophia's presence as clearly as if she'd been sitting beside me. I touched the necklace at my throat and whispered, "We did it, Mama." After court, Justice Castellanos and I walked to the small cafe where she and Sophia used to read the paper on weekend mornings. "She would be so proud," she said as we settled into our usual booth. "I finally understand what you meant," I said, "about not waiting for permission to claim your place." "And what's that?" I smiled, thinking about Carmen's daughter safely in her arms, about the dozens of other families we were helping, about the practice I'd built in the neighborhood where my mother had fought her own battles for justice. "That the most important thing isn't where you end up," I said. "It's remembering where you came from and using that knowledge to make sure other people get the same chance to find their way home." Justice Castellanos reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Now you sound exactly like her." Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courthouse steps where Sophia had once organized rallies for children's rights. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of her legacy and the lightness of finally knowing who I was meant to be. I was Elena Rodriguez, daughter of Sophia and Miguel, raised with love by the Whitmores, mentored by Justice Victoria Castellanos. I was a lawyer who fought for families, a woman who knew her place in the world because she finally knew where she came from. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.